Network, the go-to site for your infinite source of precise, reliable, and factual material exposing the Watchtower organization.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome in to our program tonight, Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower. Well, we have an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Her name is Anne Marie. She's coming in from Northern California. She has a program that really is getting a lot of momentum. A lot of people have been viewing in lately, and she does a great job, and she's going to be asking some questions to the audience tonight. Anne Marie, what are you going to be asking the audience tonight?
Well, I mean, I know it might not sound interesting, but I can't help but be curious how everybody came into the organization. I know a lot of people say they were born in, but maybe a lot like me were brought in as small children, but old enough to remember that we once had a normal, happy life before our parents got sucked into the organization. And some maybe like your dear wife, Susan, she got sucked in when she was a young girl, a young teenager, you know, because she didn't have the best life. And you know how the Watchtower cult recruiters work. They always prey on those vulnerable ones. So I was curious, how did you guys come to be in the Watchtower organization? Because, I mean, anything that takes over your life, it's interesting to find out how you ended up in that position.
Well, I mean, I'll just say for myself, I'll just tell you what happened with me. I mean, basically, I suppose you could say a born in. I was probably only about 2 or 3 years old, a toddler, when my mother became attracted to the witnesses. And it was a man right here in Massachusetts that went to him and his wife. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. Their names were Gordon and May Bailey. And they went to my grandfather's house and brought them the good news of the kingdom. And of course, my grandfather liked what he heard, and he told his daughter, which would be my aunt, about it, and my mother about it, and they fell head over heels. So my mother came into the organization back in the early 50s. And so, I mean, I kind of grew up in it. But, you know, back then, Anne Marie, it wasn't as nasty as it is today. I mean, I can remember celebrating Halloween, and even the organization wasn't too strict on Christmas. So it really wasn't too bad. But I have to tell you, I don't believe I would ever have joined it as I got older and learned about it. But when you're a kid, you don't know what a cult is. You don't know what a controlling religion is. But, you know, I would, as many that came in later years, and they're probably going to have some great stories to tell you tonight. But I mean, when you're born in or basically come in as a toddler, it's a different thing than when you join it on your own. I wish I had something more nasty to tell you, but I mean, that's what happened.
Well, I understand. It's like we used to always hear that we had to go out and preach the good news of the kingdom. But by the time I was like 14, I don't think I ever went out after that. I don't even know if I went out when I was 14. I think I stopped going out in the ministry at 13 because I realized one day, why am I going to knock on these people's door when they're happy? The kids are watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. The dad's sitting comfortable in his chair reading the paper. He's not making his kids go out in service. They're watching cartoon in their pajamas, and the wife is in the kitchen, and you can smell the bacon frying, the eggs are on the table, the pancakes are out, the coffee and the orange juice are out. And she comes to the door like, oh, hi, you know, what can I do for you? And I give her my little ministry meal, but I'm looking in on this warm, loving, relaxed family in the living room, and the kids all comfortable on the floor in their blankets, laying on their pillows, on their elbows, watching the cartoons. Everybody's so relaxed, and I remember wishing I could live like that. And then I felt guilty because I have to serve Jehovah. But later I realized, why am I going to knock on the door of a family and tell them that if they basically don't drop everything and leave everything they believe and come join the Watchtower and believe whatever the Watchtower tells them to believe and serve them and obey them and don't question them and promote them and give them money and remain loyal, or else they're going to have their family taken away from them. They're going to be shunned. What kind of good news is that? And I stopped going in the ministry when I was 13. Of course, you all know I went back later when I was just 20. because they told me I was going to die. My kids were going to die. But I mean, what is this good news? How is that good news, Rick? I would think I would rather die, but live happy life up until the time I die. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's not really good news when you get to be older and understand it. So, but as you come in, as I did, you come in cold. But you came in, you were smaller, younger too, so it's kind of hard. But there are people that come in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So let's ask.
Really?
Oh, sure, there are others. People still coming in right now. They're still trying to get and recruit people into the cult. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to be said about it. But there's two different people: people that were born in, people that kind of came in on their own, and it's a tough ball game when you come in on your own, because you constantly be saying, how did I ever do that? But it happens. People do. They fall into the trap.
Thank you, my brother. Well, I want to welcome everyone in on our six screen Saturday. Today is Saturday, December 17th. And on this show, touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower, which we were, most of us were strangled by them, poisoned by them. We're just picking the topic today of how exactly did you end up being a believer of the Watchtower cult? How did you come in by being recruited? Were you born in? And if you were born in, how did your parents come in? How did that happen? Because it doesn't seem like a big deal to whoever first became a Jehovah's Witness and then it let it take over their family and bringing their kids in. But I'm curious, anyone out there want to share their family story of how they came to be in the Watchtower, or their personal story of how they came to serve the Watchtower? Star 6? I'm curious to hear your story. Well, in case anybody doesn't want to know, and you guys jump in anytime, interrupt me anytime, star 6 if you want to talk. I had a really, really, really cool mother. She was like the best. I mean, she was loving, she was sweet, she would sing to us, she cooked great meals, she let us play. We had great birthdays and Easters and Halloween and Christmases and Thanksgiving. We were happy, happy kids. And she'd read stories to us, and we were just the happiest kids in the world. But my mom had gone through a divorce, but because she was such a sweet mom, we were still happy because she was a great mom. She made us feel safe and happy. And one day, a young Jehovah's Witness couple, Billy June and her husband Kenny. It's funny, I remember the couple, blonde-haired sister and a dark blonde brother, very nice, sweet. They started talking to her, and she was reticent at first, but they showed her in her own Catholic Bible that Jehovah was in that Bible, and that impressed her so much. So at the age of 28 years old, my poor mother, who was lonely, no friends, no car, no husband, 3 kids draining the life out of her, she was hungry for adult companionship. And by, she decided that they were teaching her the truth. And at the age of 5, and my older brother was 6.5, and my younger brother was 3, we came home from kindergarten one day, and she was sitting on the couch with my 3-year-old brother facing the door. We lived in a very small little cabin, so the couch was facing the front door. We barely walked in, and she was sitting there looking so serious. And we stopped, and we're like, what's going on? And she said, I have something very important to tell both of you. And I thought, in the back of my mind, my immediate thought was maybe Daddy was coming back, but I didn't say anything. And my mom said, you kids know that I've been studying the Bible with Billy June and her husband Kenny, and I've been learning Bible truth. And now I have to tell you what I've been learning. And she said, I've learned that God's name is not Jesus, so we can't pray to Jesus anymore. And my mom had always taught us about Jesus. Jesus made the birds and the flowers. And, she made me feel very loved by Jesus because he loved little children. And we had little prayers for Jesus. And everything was about Jesus. And all of a sudden, you can't talk to Jesus anymore because Jesus isn't God. Jesus is God's son. God's name is Jehovah, and we can only pray to Jehovah. And Jehovah is a jealous God, and you can't have any other gods before him. And we're just like, I mean, literally, like in 3 minutes, she took away our entire life. No more birthdays, no more holidays. And when you go back to school, you can't salute the flag because that's worshiping a false god. And that was the end of it. In less than, I think, maybe 2 minutes. Everything that had been our whole life was taken away. She told us she was going to join the religion of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And then I remember going to the district convention in 1960, and I just accepted it because my mom was so happy and everybody was so happy. And back in those days, I mean, hundreds of thousands. I mean, it was huge. It looked like the whole world was at this convention, and everybody's happy and smiling and hugging, and they're just happy. So I thought, well, you know, I trust my mother. And that was the year the first completed version of the New World Translation came out. It was that really weird, like light forest green color. But I mean, we just struggled to go along, but it was hard not being able to pray to Jesus because I missed him. And all of a sudden I'm supposed to pray to this God because if I don't, you know, Armageddon's coming. And that's the nasty thing. Not only did we have our entire life taken away and all the things that were fun with nothing to look forward to anymore, but now all of a sudden we're hearing about Armageddon, and it's a terrible thing to fall into the hands of the living God and all these terrible ways that God was going to kill people. And, you know, what a horrible thing. My mom has still no idea how awful it was. We had to prepare for all the meetings. You guys know the drill. So, you know, it took over my life. It took away my sense of a future. It took away any hope of the future. It took away my desire to, I mean, I couldn't go to school. I couldn't look forward to high school or college, much less a career. And you guys know the whole drill. So I'm curious, how did you end up in the Watchtower organization? Were you born in? Were you recruited? Were your parents recruited? Did you come in later when you were a teenager? Had you gone through some emotional, you know, distressful situation? How were you made vulnerable? Anybody want to chime in? Star 6?
Hello?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, my dear brother.
Hi. I was just going to say, add to your story, or so you asking about how we got brought into the cult. And for me, I was born in. And it's interesting because there were some warning signs for me, but I never took them because I just wanted to be a good son and do as you're told, you know. But when I tried to get baptized at 17, they rejected me. They said that because I didn't know who the governing body was, that they had an active part in God's organization, I couldn't get baptized for it. And then I thought to myself, I'm not baptizing myself to them, you know. I'm doing this for God. And it's just my whole life was destroyed from this religion, and I don't know how people do it anymore. I really don't. I don't have what it takes to do it, and I now that I'm awake, I have no desire to ever return.
Oh my goodness! It sounds like a very succinct way of telling that you were in misery. How
Misery.
nasty! I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just mad because they treated you that way. Go ahead and please continue.
Oh, it's gotten so bad, the brainwashing. Like, I can't believe that my family on both my side and my wife's side, like how entrenched they are in it, and how it's like when the scripture says, and I don't even really like the Bible that much, but when the scripture says, I'm losing my point. When it says to pay back Caesar's things to Caesar's, but God's to God's, Jehovah's Witnesses have completely lost that because they will do the most nasty, hurtful things to people, because man told them to, and it's gross. It's like soldiers when they go to war, you know, you do have death on your hands, unfortunately, like you do, and I feel like they are blood guilty for what they're doing to us because they hurt us so bad, you know. My wife is disabled, and I got disabled from this too. And this situation, it hurt me. I'm only 41 years old, and I'm disabled. I do have a blood disorder that hurt me, and that's another thing that Jehovah's Witnesses. If I was born in, say, 1971 instead of 1981, I would be a dead man because of the blood fractions, because I rely on them. And it became a conscience matter in the 80s, and it's like, wow. The blood guilt, the blood that is on the governing body's hands is just overwhelming.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can feel it. I can feel it. It's hard for you to even say what you're saying because what it's doing to your gut. Wow. I am so sorry you went through that.
Oh, you're empathic like me. You feel people's pain.
Yeah, I thought everybody did, but it's
No,
really
they
hard.
don't. No, there are some people that are just stone cold and don't feel. I thought everyone did too, but I think some feel it more than others. I let my beard grow out, and I learned that having a long hair is like antennas. It's actually, you can actually look this up, and it helps with your intuition and empathy. But it actually is a thing. The Native Americans, anyway.
Exactly.
I digress, but yeah, it's a thing. And Jehovah's Witnesses keep you down. It's like, what? How are you going to have a policy against beards? It's like God gave us it. Why are you making us shave it? It makes no sense. I've been persecuted over it. I used to give a give a talk, right? And I have a long Duck Dynasty type style beard now. And before then I didn't, and I was clean shaven, and my hair grows so thick that I shaved in the morning because I was an auto body painter, and I'm busy, and I had a talk to do, and I had a shadow on me even though I shaved in the morning, and they got mad at me for it. The elder counseled me after the meeting. But I thought I'd share my story a little bit.
No, I'm so glad you did. I please forgive me if you're uncomfortable for me asking. Have you shared before on the 6 screens?
Just once before, or a couple times, twice in one night, and I can't remember. Is the gentleman's name Chad, I think, and then I talked to Rick once too. I just discovered your channel, and I think that you guys have a great thing going. Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we need a voice, and we need to hear stories, and that way the Peonies, the Jehovah's Witnesses that are still in, if they hear it too, help wake everybody up out of the hamster wheel.
Right. No, and the PIMQs too, because you're a Peony, you totally believe, and you totally mentally, really, really believe. But I'm sorry, I don't think you can be sincere about loving God and sincere about loving truth and love and being a kind, compassionate, good person. I don't see how you could be in there for very long, or at some point you're going to start questioning. At some point you're not going to be able to swallow those things that just bother you and disturb you. You can't keep swallowing your questions. But at the point of being a PIMQ, physically and mentally questioning, I feel the worst for them, because they're not sure yet. And they almost, they almost feel guilty, like, oh, Satan's trying to take over my mind. That is a scary place to be. But, Rick Farron has been working so faithfully on this forum to have a safe place for all of us to come to, where we can listen to each other and share with each other and support each other and validate each other in real time, and then listen to the show later, so that those who maybe didn't hear it now, maybe down the road, if they're looking for answers, they can find it. I just wanted to say thank you so much, because I've never personally heard you, or I don't remember, and I'm so glad you brought it up. And I'm so sorry for your blood disorder, because I've known 2 people in my personal life who have this blood disorder. I didn't know what it was, forgot what it was called, but it was something to do with coagulation. Yes, and both of them, their arms froze up to where they're permanently bent. And
mine are too. Mine are permanently bent. But I lost range of motion. I'm at like 65%.
I'm so sorry.
It's why I don't work in auto body anymore, because the repetitive motions of standing. I don't want to get into it too much, but that's
yeah.
And then the cult, because of having no support of how, like, how I don't know if everyone listening, or including yourself, know this, but like, it's a sad thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. When they talk about the disfellowshipping arrangement, they go, it's a loving arrangement. I have had 4 reinstatement letters and been rejected. That's loving. My family, I called my family when I was in the hospital sick with an IG internal bleed, and they refused to pick up the phone. I was scared, you know, wondering if I was going to be okay. And there was a chance that I needed a blood transfusion, and I was going to take it because I have a wife to take care of. But I ended up okay, and I didn't need the blood transfusion. But I'm bringing up that story because how disgusting. You say that this is love, and it's like, it's not love. It's like gaslighting.
I'm so sorry. You know, it's amazing
it's
how
okay.
many things they you know, they call it a religion, the truth, when it's nothing but fabricated, twisted, manipulative lies, twisting of the facts, twisting of the truth. And like you said, they call it a loving thing. It is not loving. It's the most hateful, cruel, cold, mean, cold-hearted, no natural affection kind of thing. Anything that has the power to twist a mother or father's natural love for their child has to be based on evil.
Yep. Exactly, because the natural affection, that's almost Bible prophecy, and Jehovah's Witnesses are a part of that. They're breaking up the families, whether they want to admit it or not. Whatever they want to, with what's happening in Norway, you know, they're saying they're being persecuted. No one's being persecuted. You have the right to do whatever you want. They just took the money away.
Oh, persecution. Aren't they the
persecution. Well, maybe you shouldn't be persecuting us. You know?
Well, that's the thing. They can persecute us all they want, and that's okay. But it's like, it's always different when the shoe's on the other foot. Oh, bless your heart. Just one moment, brother. I just want to see if anybody else is waiting to chime in. Please don't leave. Is there anyone who would like to comment on what this brother is talking about or share a thought of your own? *6. Please don't feel left out. You're perfectly welcome to speak. Okay, please continue, brother. I just want to make sure all of us know that this is everybody's forum.
Oh, for sure. I was interested in what you were talking about, and when you said about Rick before, I hear somebody that's tied in. I'll just leave with a concluding thought that Rick Farron does a really good show, and I think he's very professional, and he does a great job at what he does. It's very, very professional. I'm from East Providence, Rhode Island, so I have a connection with him because he's a Bostonian.
Bostonian, there you go.
It was great talking to you.
Oh, brother, it was wonderful talking to you, and thank you for giving a shout out for Rick. Because that man works so hard every single day, and he's so faithful and so kind and so loving. And I'm always telling him, take care of yourself because we can't lose you.
Right, no doubt. What was your name, hon?
I'm sorry, my name is Anne Marie.
Anne-Marie,
do you care to share
Eric. Eric.
Do you care to share your Eric? Oh, bless your heart, Eric. I'm so sorry.
Well, bless yours, and thank you for listening. Oh, they have tortured me, and I want to let everybody know that's listening, that's a PIMQ or anything, or a PIMO or PIMI, anything. Our stories, like just the abuse that Watchtower does. It's important for people to know. But I'll let you go. Hello.
Eric, it was a pleasure. Hello, go ahead.
Yes, my name is, I'm a man of lawlessness. I used to be a witness. I walked away back in 2016, but I was raised back in the late 60s, early 70s, during the time of 1975. So stay alive 75. I was there when where the elder arrangement was put in place and the governing body was put in place. But the thing is, we were told I was going to never graduate high school.
Yep.
And it was funny when 75 came and went, and there was a great migration of people leaving the organization. They never watched us, the younger ones. We were allowed to run wild, and we did whatever we want. Because
really?
I wasn't baptized. none of us, we knew early on that if we got baptized, there's a chance you get this fellowship and get cut off. So I did till I was like 21 years old. You know, that was because I wanted my mother's approval.
Exactly. I hear that a lot. A lot of people got baptized because their mothers and fathers and grandparents, everybody kept pressuring them. And you want that approval. You need to feel that you have the approval. Are you driving or something? It seems like we're having a little trouble hearing you.
No, I'm in my bedroom, just sitting on the bed. I'm speaking to the speakerphone.
Oh, maybe that's the problem. Yeah, it's a little difficult hearing you. Okay. Well, man of lawlessness, I really appreciate your insight. A lot of people today are not old enough to have the memories that you have, you know, of the 60s and the early 70s and 75. And, you know, I went back to the organization in early 1975 because my mother had sent these two sisters to quote unquote talk me into my senses. And I didn't want my children to die. And I was pregnant also. And they said that my children and the baby growing inside me were all going to die because I didn't want to take a stand for Jehovah. And I was terrified out of my mind because I had been raised in this organization. That's all we ever heard. And, you know, that kids would, and I just like, oh my God. So I threw myself into it. But, you know, they are so manipulative and they use mind control techniques. And I didn't even realize it until a few years ago. This isn't just another religion.
Yeah. I remember, this is how far back I know. I remember having circuit assemblies in tents in cow pastures. We had a memorial at the Masonic Temple.
Yeah, we had them at the Masonic Temple as well. Yeah. Our circuit assemblies were at the Masonic Temple.
Yeah. Yeah, my father was a Freemason.
My grandparents were Freemasons.
Yeah, he was a Freemason and he was an elder. He was presiding overseer.
Thank you for mentioning that. You know, there are those brothers who actually are still members and they have that little ring or whatever and they try to hide it. A lot of people don't even know. And they deny it. Wow, thank you for saying that. So how did it come about that your father was a Mason and a witness?
Yeah. Huh?
Those are some
he was a Freemason first, and when he came in the truth, when he learned the truth, where he learned a bunch of lies that they hold as truth, they fast-tracked him as an elder because this was like around 72, where they instituted the elder arrangement, and he was one of the older men in the congregation. They appointed him an elder. So
I thought that was interesting. You said that he was a Mason, and they fast tracked him to be an elder. That is a hollow light bulb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I remember.
One moment, Pixie was trying to comment. Just one moment, brother. Don't leave. Pixie, what were you saying, sweetie?
I was just making a quip that those are some expensive rings. I can really relate to what the brother is sharing from my era there, too, back then.
Oh, Pixie, thank you so much for sharing that. Brother, please continue.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I remember. The 6 and 7 days of conventions that last from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah,
we wouldn't get out of Candlestick. We were in Candlestick Park, and that Candlestick Park is right off the bay of San Francisco. And I'm telling you, we would be up in the stands. It would be dark, and we'd be wrapped in wool blankets and the wind whipping through the stadium because it was right off the bay. And we wouldn't get out of there till after 10 o'clock at night. And there were 5 and 6 and 7 day conventions all day long. So you remember that. A lot of people don't. And the circuit assemblies used to start on a Thursday night and then again on a Friday night, and then all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And now it's hardly at all. And they think they have it hard. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I remember having them. My father used to live outside the city in a small town called Victor, New York. That's where he grew up at. and we used to have our circuit assemblies in the gymnasium of his old high school. And it's just how far this organization came. I remember one tragedy where one young boy was forced to give a talk in our old Kingdom Hall. He came back that night and burnt the Kingdom Hall down.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he came and burnt the Kingdom Hall down. And one of the elders, one of the overseers, and his wife was living upstairs in the Kingdom Hall when it was burnt down.
Was this on purpose?
Yes, because he was upset with his father for making him give a talk. He was around 12 years old.
Oh, yeah. So many kids were pushed. But what about that poor sister whose life he endangered?
Mm-hmm.
That is so...
It was just a lot I had experienced growing up. I've seen a lot, you know. And my wife and my son are still in it. They're peeving. I just got tired of. I walked away because I was doing so much for the organization, and they passed me over for being a ministerial servant. And I asked why, and they said, you know the reason, because you haven't put your 10 hours a month. But I was part of the Nepali language group, Hindi language group. I worked on the RBC as a photographer and doing installation and security. And
oh my goodness. Just not enough, my brother.
Not enough.
Oh man, I am so sorry. They disgust me.
Well, thank you for all you did. Do you remember the old days before they had the theater chairs? Did you ever have a Kingdom Hall that had the hard, cold metal chairs?
No. I've been in a couple of them like that. But
that really added to the discomfort of the. It kind of gave it that brainwashing interrogation feel every Sunday because the chair was metal, cold, and hard.
I remember that, Dixie.
Yeah, I remember. The 2-hour meetings. I remember. Being in grade school and getting out, knowing they had to go to school the next day, getting out about 9:30, 10 o'clock from the meeting. It had to be to school the next morning.
Yeah.
Do you remember when there used to be an intermission and everybody would go outside and for 15 minutes and all the smokers would go out there and light up their cigars and their pipes and cigarettes and stuff?
I remember that. I remember those days.
Yeah.
It must have been before 72, before they put the kibosh on all the smoking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they gave 6 months to quit. Or they got disfellowship. A whole bunch of people left. You were just picking up all the things I remember when you were talking about the meetings that go from, like 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And we would have a break for lunch and a break for supper.
Yeah.
I'm not meaning to. You keep talking.
When I was young, in the neighborhood I lived, it was just like a small community of witnesses. You had for our book studies, all we had to do is walk across the street and go to one of the neighbors' houses for a witness, and that's our book study. And it was a lot of kids, it was a lot of people back then because they were preaching the end of the system. So you had an influx of people. I remember we used to have a lot of fun. And it seemed like after 1975, it killed everything. And then after 1980, around the time where they were trying to, that's around the time where you can't disassociate and you still be shunned. And around the time with Raymond Franz, it seemed like they took a real hard line and clamped down on everything. Everything.
Yeah, they really did. They really, really did. But even there were some things that even in the old days, what I call the old days, they were funny, like, for instance, about vaccinations. You could be disfellowshipped. They told my mom that was a disfellowshipping event, letting your kids get vaccinated. And way back in the late 50s, early 60s, there were parents who were Jehovah's Witness parents who were forging the letters and lying and saying, oh yeah, my kid's vaccinated and these are the dates or whatever, and they weren't. you know, just because it was a disfellowshipping offense. And, you know, it just kind of depended on what congregation you were in. But back in the old days, before the elder arrangement, they had what they called the congregation servant, and then they had the service overseer and the book study overseer. And those three elders made up the committee for any judicial committee there needed to be. But generally, the congregation servant, if he had a good heart, you had a loving congregation. If he was a jerk, if he was an arrogant jerk, a judgmental jerk, you were in misery. And then when they took over, like you said, you know, in the witch hunt that took over, when all the brothers and sisters, when they started wondering what the heck happened when Armageddon didn't come, and at Bethel they were kind of quietly and secretly trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and were studying on their own, you know, things got out. Somebody squealed, somebody ratted on somebody, and they had all these, what they called the witch hunt. People were being dragged in the middle of the night to some obscure place in Bethel in a room and interrogated and berated and, you know, give us names. It was almost like mental torture. And then they'd be told to leave, and they'd have to leave in the middle of the night, couldn't tell anybody. And then when they got a hold of Raymond Franz, he came back from vacation and he didn't know what the heck was going on. And somebody had already named him like he was the ringleader or something. And he's like this dedicated, wonderful, sweet brother who would just basically try his best to keep his mouth shut and not make waves. But so many things bothered him that he saw, that things had nothing to do with God or love or the Bible. He knew that things were terribly wrong, but he was still loyal. He and his wife were living. He and his wife, Cynthia, were loyal to Watchtower. And then he gets kicked out. Well, they gave him money. How nice. But they wanted to make sure they could keep him quiet. So they were spying on him to make sure that they could find some excuse to disfellowship him for, so that now, technically, according to Watchtower law, anything he said would not be believed or listened to, because he was disfellowship. And I think somebody caught him having lunch during the day with his boss, who was a disfellowship Jehovah's Witness. I think his name was Ed Dunlap. I don't remember the guy's name, but I think the guy had, it was him. I think he had hired Ray, and I think he was working at a grocery store or something. I don't remember the details, but somebody was spying on him, and then they clamped down on, oh, you associated with you're disfellowship. And they just, like you said, got hard, mean, cold. Oh my goodness. Anybody want to speak? I didn't mean to go on.
No, when you were saying they were spying on people, spying on Raymond Franz, it reminded me what Jim Jones had his people do for people who left his organization, and the same thing what Scientology is doing, spying on their dissidents, people who left their organization. So it shows that the Watchtower organization is no different from any other organization on the earth. If you're of God, why do you need to spy on people? Why don't you just let them go and let Jehovah take care of it? You know, why do you need to continue to exert that control over individuals who don't want to be controlled?
Well, the why is very easy to answer. It's because they're not just an organization. They're not just a religion. They are a cult, and cult is a 4-letter word in every sense of the word. Anybody that is afraid to look up the history of the organization of Watchtower, if you are a PIMQ, somebody who is physically in but mentally you're questioning, or maybe you're not sure. If you're not sure and you're scared to look up the history of Watchtower, you're scared to look up YouTube or anything, look up what makes a cult. Look up BITE model, BITE, behavioral control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. Look up the BITE model on YouTube and really pay attention. Good for you. I'm just talking to anybody.
I have
good for you.
Book. You know what woke me up? I had an assignment on the school about Abaddon. And I went to the inside book, and it had one paragraph, and it pointed as Abaddon, the keeper of Hades or the underworld, as Jesus Christ. And I said, that didn't sound right. So I went online, and I found who Abaddon was. So I used information from a TV show, the Supernatural TV show, for that talk, and none of the witnesses knew. None of the witnesses knew. I used information from a TV show for that talk, and none of them knew it. And that right there woke me up. It told me that these individuals do not know the Bible. They don't know the information that's coming from the Bible. Anything that the governing bodies making this stuff up as it goes along, you know, and they just tell us this is what it means, and
they don't research like they used to. Oh, the book review for this week. There is a book called God, a Biography, and you got it already?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, I was going to order it. I wanted to mention it to this group because I think they'll really groove on it.
Yes, they will. It really breaks down the God of the Bible and who He really is. It's real good. It's like we were always told that Yahweh was the only God of Israel, but the book brings out that there is a pantheon of gods, and Jehovah or Yahweh was one of the gods in that pantheon.
Right. And goddesses too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Jehovah had a wife.
He did.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate the one point you brought out about the Bible that, you know, as Jehovah's Witnesses, like I have to say we were Watchtowerites because we weren't representing Jehovah God or the God of the universe as we were told. We were representing and believing in and following and serving the Watchtower. So basically, truly, we were Watchtowerites. But the thing is, we were convinced that we as Bible, we knew the Bible better than anybody because we had the faithful and discreet slave. You know, it's like, Mikey, ever listen to Mikey and Kim on YouTube?
Yes.
Mikey made a comment, and I never forgot it. I thought, that man is brilliant. He said, when we were in the organization, we were kept and treated just like mushrooms. We were kept in the dark and fed manure.
Yep. Yep.
And it's true because, like, we didn't know our Bible. Go ahead, dear.
No, I had learned more in the last 6 years about this organization, about the Bible, about cults. I mean, in the last 6 years, I mean, since I left, I just dove myself into books about the People's Temple, about the Branch Davidians, about the fundamental LDS. I just threw myself, and I've seen the parallels with the Watchtower organization, like that bike model that you mentioned. It was pronounced through all those cults, and it's like, wow, you know, it's like I try my best to break my wife and my son out of it, but I can't. So I gotta let them be and let them come to their own terms with it, because it's hard. It's really entrenched. My wife she's believing in that resurrection. She wants to see her mom come back in the resurrection, and it's no other way to convince her that that's not a Bible teaching.
That is so well said, and I'm glad you recognize, because when we all wake up, the first thing we want to do is, oh my God, and warn our husbands, our wives, our children, our grandmothers, our parents, and you can't. I think somebody tried to wake me up, and I was like scoffing and laughing at them. You have to really down deep want to know, and then only I personally believe the Lord, the angels, spirit guides, whatever, you have to down deep want to know. And I think that God or the angels or whoever knows what it takes for you to spark that little spark, or to plant that seed. You know how the Bible says that, you know, you plant the seed and this one waters it, but God makes it grow. And that's why it's a process. You totally believe, and then you get to where you feel kind of bothered, like somebody will make an ugly comment, or somebody will whatever, or somebody will say something and it doesn't quite jive with what you just read in the scriptures, but you kind of swallow it down. Oh, well, Jehovah will take care of it. Oh, they're just imperfect men. Oh, Satan's trying to get me to doubt Jehovah. You know, there's always an excuse, and it's all part of the indoctrination. It's all part of the subliminal mind control programming. But the thing is you realize at some point, if you really do want to know the truth, something will go, aha, and the little light bulb will go off. And it's amazing. And it's like, I believe that each of us has a personal path. And it's like Randy Waters said, nobody knows a person's time. When they're ready to wake up, something will help them wake up and they will come out. Others won't. They just won't. You can't show them. Jesus Christ came down in front of them. If they're not ready to listen, they'll call him an apostate and accuse him of terrible, ugly things. In fact, in 1977, I believe it was the Awake. There was an Awake in this 1977. I read it, and it said something about Jesus and how his own people, this is what people don't get, his own people who knew all of the 100 prophecies that he would fulfill, his own people who were waiting for him, his own people who were looking forward to him coming and saving them from all of this fleshly garbage of their religion, to save them with this sacrifice. When he finally came, they hated him and they screamed for his death. And the Watchtower or Awake, I don't remember which one it was, they said that if Jesus came right now, they'd kill him all over again. And I realized, my God, he was born into, quote unquote, Jehovah's organization of his day. What if today he came and was born into a Watchtower family and was a good little Watchtowerite little boy and did everything required and then stood up and said, come out and follow me? They'd kill it. They'd scream for his death too. They'd disfellowship him. They would do everything they could to discredit him. You know why? Because just like the religious leaders in Jesus' day, it's the same thing with Watchtower and every other cult. They will not put up with anything that threatens their control and their power and their money.
Yeah, and that's why they deny Christ now. Yes, that's why they don't even recognize him now, because of that. Because he is according to the Bible, he is the truth and the way, and it denies people that access to him. I mean, look at the. We have to be careful not to start preaching. I didn't mean to start preaching, but when there's a fine line, and we have to be careful. And I apologize if I sparked, but I hear you.
Where it says, neither do you go in nor let anybody else in.
Yep. And tying up heavy burdens. You know, we can make references to what we know, but the thing is, it's like you have brought out, brother, and you as well, Pixie. And Pixie, thank you for chiming in. They use the Bible and twist it and twist scriptures and mix things around in their own personal stew, whatever stew they're cooking up, to make them look good, to suit their agenda. And they have a way of making the Bible look like it's supporting whatever hogwash they're teaching at any given time. We know that's true. But then there are so many scriptures that they ignore because they clearly show that the scriptures do not support what Watchtower is teaching, and they're not going to refer to it. Go ahead, dear.
The author of the book that the gentleman and I were discussing, God, a Biography, the lady was skilled and trained at Oxford, and she's quite something. And there were 3 interviews with her on YouTube with different hosts. And one of the hosts says, well, God doesn't need money. Why would the God of the ancient Bible need food and money? Because she talks about how these ancient gods, there was always food and money involved. And she says, well, he wouldn't, but the priests would.
So true. So true. It's amazing how hasn't Watchtower, especially in the last 10 years, and in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, stepped up to an extreme degree, their requests and their begging and their manipulative talks and videos, calling for money, more money, as they continue to sell off Kingdom Halls. I think they've sold off over 3,300 Kingdom Halls, is selling off more. They closed 4,500
worldwide.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
About 4,500 Kingdom Hall worldwide. There's 2 in this.
I didn't know.
They have over countries, and they have. It's estimated they may have $40 billion, but they're in good neighborhood, and they want more from the poor. You know, just like the Vatican financed beautiful marble buildings on the backs of poor peasantry. what's the difference?
It's funny how they vilified the Catholic religion, and they slowly evolved, just like the Catholic religion.
Yeah, at least the Catholic belief system does have Catholic charities. I have yet to get a can of peaches. You'll hear me say that often. I have yet to get a can of peaches.
Me neither. You know how many times my family, I lost a job and we had to go to social service, you know? And it's like, I can't these supposed to be my spiritual brothers and sisters. They don't have no kind of relief for any kind of individuals. How is that following in the footsteps of Jesus? But the thing is, we know that this whole organization, and Rutherford said it, is a snare and a racket.
Oh, religion is a snare and a racket, sure. Yeah, they tried to extort my house. My mother was 102. She said, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I knew you not."
Yeah, they were trying to get my mother. They were trying to get my mother's house too. You know, they had sent different individuals over there to try to talk her into signing over her house.
Did you get to keep the house?
We got the house.
Thank God.
We kept the house.
Yeah. And a funny one, they had these beautiful boxes with cheese and onions and potatoes and fresh food in it that under the Trump administration, they were having this farmer to table boxes. And, you know, the worldwide medical crisis and things that we just went through a couple years back, and they had this farmer to table box. Well, on the outside, it had a letter that was, you know, this is farmer to table food and the presidential signature, and you open it up and it had the same letter. And the sister says to me, "Oh, well, Jehovah brought you that box." I said, "Sister," I said, "you have a degree in biology. I know you can read." I said, the Uncle Sam and President Trump brought that box. It was so funny.
It is, because they tried to make like they did it. But they were getting paid by the government to distribute that food.
Yeah,
and
it was lovely. It was lovely quality of that food. But I think people are stupid. I'm wondering if it's just now a distraction to get all the C students in a windowless room. I mean, I'm fourth generation, but I look at it now and it gets more different by the day.
Yeah, you can say that again, because it's just how I noticed it when they start dumbing down the literature.
Oh, gosh, it's second grade now. It's fill in the blank now.
Yeah.
And they asked me what I thought of it, because I was thinking of going back until my mother died and my fiance died, and I had to do their care. And it was my honor to do so. But they handed me the new booklet. And she says, "Well, what do you think of the man on this cover of the new booklet with these mountains? Do you think the witnesses are on the other side of that mountain?" And I turned to her and I said, "No, looks like the brother's walking away."
You know, in the old days, the Watchtower used to brag how we should be so proud because all of their writings in the booklets and in the books that we studied and in the magazines was college level. And they would brag about how witness children always usually scored high on tests and got scholarship because they were so well taught. But now, like you said, Pixie, you know, they have dumbed down the writing. And does anybody notice that when Stephen Lett speaks, I never could put my finger on what bothered me the most, but then I realize in the way he speaks, he talks like he's talking to a group of 5-year-olds.
If he had a neurological condition, and then I wondered if he was talking to people in Papua New Guinea that maybe had a different language, they had to dub it. I had all kinds of things. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And just in the last 2 weeks, there was a YouTube that showed the gentleman in an interview at a table in a fine suit, and he was absolutely speaking in a normal, intelligent tone. So he is putting that on to talk down to an audience, and he reminds me of the guy that was in that Heaven's Gate cult.
He does. Oh, Pixie, you are right on the money with those big eyes and those up and down eyebrows. And oh my God, that gave me the creeps right now.
Well, I'm not the only one that said it. And like I said, I looked at that because I thought if he's got a neurological condition, I'll work with that. But this tape, he can speak totally normally, sitting at a desk just fine. He's doing it on purpose.
That's
Do
crazy.
y'all remember when they used to say that witness kids were getting equivalent to a college education just by reading the Awake magazine because it was all based on science and things? And I had scholarships, to go to a university and medical school if I had wanted to. And of course I wanted to, but my parents moved us away so that it made it look, well, I was also a minor when I got all those scholarships, but I didn't get to go to college. Well, I did after I was an adult. I did go to college. But do y'all remember a TV commercial about Dial soap? It said, aren't you glad you used Dial? Don't you wish everybody did?
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, based on that commercial, one time, actually, we were having a circuit assembly, and it was late at night, and I remember being so sleepy. I was a little kid, too. And a family that I knew, husband and wife, were up on the stage, and we were meeting in a nightclub at that time. Now you met like in the different places. But anyway, they were sitting at their little table reading the magazine, The Watchtower and Awake. And she looked over at her husband and she says, aren't you glad we read The Watchtower? Don't you wish everybody did? And everybody in the audience just busted out laughing and clapped about that. And I've never forgotten that scene or the brother and sister that did it, Tony and Margie Blankenship. And and I got baptized in 75. I was 14 years old. And you remember we had to answer the 40 questions? Well, because they gave a talk at the Kingdom Hall from the platform talking about how, like, if you were about 12 years old and older, you knew right from wrong. And don't think you're going to get through Armageddon on the coattails of your parents. If you're not baptized, you're going to be killed right along with all these wicked worldly people, and the birds are going to peck out your eyes and all that stuff. So 79 people in the congregation wanted to get baptized. Anybody over 12 wanted to get baptized. And there were so many of us, there was no way they could go through all the 40 questions with everybody individually like they normally did. So we met all in one big room. And my dad had, my dad was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, but he was pioneer and he got depressed and he went and joined the military. So his mama went and told him the military he was crazy, so they got him out. He got an honorable discharge or something. And anyway, he didn't want to go back to being a witness, so he married my mom, and there's one picture I had of my mom, and she was pregnant with me, and there was a Christmas tree. And then the next year, she told my dad, there's no way Santa Claus is not visiting my children. And then in 1965, with the Truth Book, I think that's when the Truth Book came out, 65. Yeah, because my little brother was born in 65. And they changed, what?
1968 was the Truth That Leads to Eternal Life. That's an important book.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie.
But anyway, they came when my mom was watching As the World Turns, and she accepted a Bible study, but they came on purpose every week when it was on, because it was a sin to watch a soap opera. Anyway, that's all. Just reminded me of that.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I'd never heard that it was a sin to watch a soap opera, because where I was, all of the sisters would say, well, let's hurry up. I don't want to miss my show when we were out in service. And I was completely hooked on soap operas. And then, I don't know, maybe 82, 83, the Watchtower came out with an Awake article about soap operas and how they were very addicting. And they were addicting just like any drug. And that really, really, really upset me, that I realized I was addicted. And that's when I made up my mind to figure out my tight budget to get cable, because soap operas were the only thing available to me. And I broke my habit of soap operas. But all of the sisters I knew, if they could, watch the TV, I got to get to my show, because we didn't have an outlet. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Debbie. Is there anybody else?
You remember Peyton Place? I think that was the first soap opera, and the Watchtower Society came out and said that was a soap opera, just like As the World Turns, and that sisters weren't watching too many of them, and they were filled with immorality, and that's why they were not supposed to watch them. And my mom, she was addicted to As the World Turns, and I never watched soap operas until I got married in 77, and then I got addicted to them for years and years, decades, and before that I had never watched a soap opera, but I remember them always talking about Peyton Place, and the sisters would talk about it at the Kingdom. Yeah, because everybody did. They wanted to watch their soap operas, but because of and that's when divorce was coming out a little bit, because when I was growing up, I didn't even know what divorce was, and anyway, but that's why when my mom, and maybe it was just that congregation, but and wasn't Jimmy Carter the president in 1975? Because the president, I could swear it was him, had declared that 1976 was the year of peace and security. And that just added to the fervor of Armageddon coming, immediately. And we all got baptized in 75, and then we were thinking on January 1st, 1976, we were going to wake up to dead bodies, everywhere, and have to clean all that up and all that stuff. And I remember waking up and everything was still exactly the same. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I kind of, just stayed with it through 76. And then I was 16 and 77, and I got married, and we kind of moved away. And I didn't really want anything.
You're going to wrap this up pretty soon?
Yeah, I'm done. Go
No,
ahead.
I just don't know where this is going. I just wanted to take the opportunity to ask if anybody would like to speak. I'm not saying, go away. I don't know where you're going. So, does anybody want to speak or comment on what Debbie was talking about, or Pixie, or our other brother? Anybody want to comment? *6. Otherwise, Debbie will continue. Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
No, I was just sharing some of the memories before it wasn't fun anymore. Like the brother said, it seems like after 1975, the fun was gone. Before that, we had fun. Except except when they went from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. That was hard on a little kid.
Well, I remember having to get to the venue at 7.
We're watching Peyton Place. I was too young to really appreciate the show, but it was a soap opera at night for those of you in the audience that are younger. And it was kind of a scandalous show for the era. And my congregation, all the adults were watching it and talking about it. And then they had a murder mystery show based on a true case of Sam Shepard called The Fugitive, and everybody in my town was watching that. All the adults were watching that. And so after the meeting, the adults would talk about The Fugitive or Peyton Place. They'd be watching the Dean Martin show. It was a time when everybody watched the same television shows, and it was a rather sophisticated time. Everybody dressed up to go to town, and we would have dinner parties for the traveling overseers, and the grown-ups would have fancy cocktails. It was kind of a neat time to be around.
Yeah, you're right, Pixie. I remember those days. And you mentioned cold metal chairs in the Kingdom Hall and some of the places. When I was in the congregation where I went as a kid, my brothers and I, it was a very poor Kingdom Hall, and it had white linoleum floor that the brothers had put in themselves, and they had built it themselves out of an old storefront. And we had pink metal chairs, and every weekend it was a book studies turn. The service center would be at somebody's house. Every time when it was our turn, my brothers and I and the brother that took us to the meeting, the four of us would have to get all of those metal chairs in Kingdom Hall, fold them up, stack them, take them outside, sweep, mop, and then scrub on our hands and knees that entire white linoleum floor of the Kingdom Hall. And the way the Kingdom Halls are now that I've seen all carpeted and fancy chairs, I'm like, oh my goodness. You just brought back memories, Pixie.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to comment? Pixie and Debbie and the others have brought up some fun stuff that I haven't heard in a while.
Oh, the funniest story.
Sorry.
The funniest story, it's a short one.
Go ahead.
We had this brother come to our congregation from LA. And I don't know why he ended up in our town, but he had known Marilyn Monroe, and he told my mother that she looked like her, and my mother did. She was very beautiful, and she didn't have to glam up to look glamorous. She was just lovely. So this brother from Hollywood, they were going to get him a wife. So this pretty dark-haired sister had been married before, and I was questioning, well, why do you have a blue wedding dress? It's pretty, but it's blue. And she says, well, I was married before. And so she got married to this Hollywood brother, and we were all excited because we didn't get to go to wedding receptions very much. And I was looking forward to the wedding cake and punch, and they were going to have catered food there. And on the way to the wedding, the brother told his new bride that he didn't really like girls. In those days, they didn't use the word gay, and they called off the wedding reception. and I guess the wedding got annulled. But everybody in the congregation was really disappointed because they couldn't go to this fancy reception that had been paid for.
Oh, that is messed up. I mean, as Jehovah's Witnesses, what did we really have to look forward to?
I know, and I felt sad because I'm like, well, did the bride's family have to pay for all that food and stuff?
Probably, huh?
There.
That is so sad and so messed up. It's amazing how many gay brothers, I don't know, I've never met a lesbian in the Watchtower, but I did, there were 3 gay brothers in my Kingdom Hall. And the only reason I knew they were gay is because I was born and raised in San Francisco, and we knew all about the Tenderloin and the Castro, which was the heart of the gay community. And we had gay friends. I mean, you are what you are. And I recognized them, and I'll never forget, they knew that I knew. Because when I would very seldom talk to them, or they would talk to me, it was always polite, but I could tell by their eyes they knew I knew, and they would look at me like, please don't say anything. And I would just smile and look at them like, I got your back, brother. I got your back. But it was so sad. It's so sad to not be who you are. And I think that has to be so sad, such a tragedy.
A long way in knowing about those things. This was back in, I guess 1966 or something. People were much more provincial in what they knew and didn't know. But
yeah, it's really hard. They talk about in the Watchtower, we're so free and we're so blessed and we're the happiest people on the earth. But you're not allowed to be who you really are, even if you're not gay. You're not allowed to speak. Nope, you're not allowed to speak freely. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to investigate. You're not allowed
to you want to
disagree.
Can't dress the way you want to. I think it's going to be an interesting legal situation next year. Gay marriage is the law of the land. So the churches are going to have to look seriously at that, because that's the law of the land now. So I hear you.
Yeah, well, they would probably look at it as it's breaking God's law. And God's law, you obeyed human law until it broke God's law. And according to the Bible, homosexuality is against God's law.
When they had,
I don't want to get into talking bad about anything. I don't want to say that. I'm sorry. I do not want the show to go there. I'm not going to say anything judgmental. No judgment against somebody else.
I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying you said the churches were going to have to accept that.
The new Supreme Court ruling, they sent it back to court. They sent it back to the court again, and the court said, this is the law, and this is the law for every state now, which is a monumental ruling of equality. So the churches next year, it's going to be an interesting topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would anybody like to comment on anything that's been brought up? And Pixie and Debbie have been bringing up some interesting memories and experiences and thoughts and opinions. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you guys. Go ahead, dear. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when it comes to, I know you didn't want to go on that topic, but when it comes to homosexuality and everything else, there are so many sins that are laid out in the Bible. Who cares? Like, we're all sinners. You know what I mean? Like, there's a sin for everyone. Like, if that's your sin, and then something else is a sin that you do, we're all sinners. I hate that there would be any prejudice against people just because of who they are, And I just wanted to add that. I know we need to move on, but I just wanted to add that.
Well, brother, I want
to apologize if y'all think I was being judgmental. I wasn't. I was just saying that's the fight that the churches will use when against the law of the land. That's what they would say. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that, Debbie. I'm sorry, I just hear too much. I hate racism, I hate biasness, I hate judgment, and I get a real bad reaction sometime, and I'm sorry if I came down too hard. I just didn't want it to go somewhere where I really don't want it to go. Please, because everybody is a precious child of God, and let God take care of it. But you're right, Debbie. I can understand what you're saying, and thank you for clarifying that. And I appreciate, brother, that you brought up what you just said. I really think that God is love. I personally believe in, it's like the scripture says, who are you to judge your brother and saying, oh, let me extract that little splinter from your eye when, look, there's a rafter in your own. All of this judgment and condemnation, that's what Watchtower and cults do. I don't want any part of it.
Were you aware of the ruling last week?
Can we let Pixie finish her thought, and then Debbie, you after Pixie? Pixie, go ahead, please.
Asking you if you were aware of the Supreme Court case. I listened to the whole case last week on YouTube, and the bill signed by the president, so that it was the law of the land, but it was state by state. Now it's the law of the land for every state. And what makes it an interesting news story is in the last 3 years, the Methodist Church has already schismed because of it. So I don't think the churches now will be able to use freedom of religion to prohibit gay unions. So next year is going to be real interesting.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I wasn't clear on that, Wow. I just feel like we are all so individual in any group, no matter what you have in common. You are still an individual. Nobody is just like anybody else. And, I think it's such a blessing that we were all given the gift of individuality, our own personality, our own thoughts, our own, powers of perception, and the ability to think and to like or not like or feel or not feel or share or not share. And when anybody start pointing fingers and passing judgment and gossiping and judging, it just reminds me of how twisted and sick Watchtower is. And I remember the misery that I perceived from those poor gay brothers that were in my congregation. And here they were trying so hard to deny who they were. And I feel like I was going to cry because I could feel their suffering. Because even if you're straight, in the organization, faithfully believing and faithfully serving and faithfully promoting and being loyal and the whole thing, it's such a burden, and it's so much emotional and mental stress. And can you imagine having that added burden and to see it in their eyes? I still see their eyes. So I'm sorry, I'm hypersensitive against somebody when they start saying anything, or if I think they're saying something. But Pixie, you know what? You always bring up some good stuff. And I want to thank you for that. You are so awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I spent many years in the newsroom. I'm retired now, but I like to help. I like to help the group here whenever I can.
Well, you do a darn good job. Thank you, Pixie, so much. Debbie, you wanted to share something, Debbie? Please.
I was just going to say my granddaughter's best friend is gay. I mean, my granddaughters are all in their 20s, and they all have gay friends, and I've always, invited them over with my granddaughter. I mean, I never thought anything of them, bad about them. I'm just saying a lot of times the gay men are nicer and we're considerate and everything than straight men.
That can be true.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much, Debbie. That's good. I just see everybody as an individual. We're all so important. I think we matter, and God gave us the greatest gift. To me, this is just my personal belief. I'm not trying to be preachy, but I am so grateful, that we are given our own mind and our own, just think, you're in your body. You could have been born in any body, but you're so unique. You're you, and there's no other you in the whole world. And it's like, what if there was just one rose, one red rose that ever existed? It would be in the Hall of Fame. It would be under guard. And because it's so precious, but just because there's a whole bunch of roses everywhere doesn't mean that one rose isn't just as precious. We are all special and precious. That's just my opinion. And I just feel like we should just love each other and support each other. And like the old saying, if you can't support the plan, at least support your man. You might not like or approve of everything somebody does or doesn't do, or what they believe or don't believe, but you can love them as a precious child of the universe. That's just my opinion. Didn't mean to be on the soapbox. Anybody want to comment?
Well, what happened with the last 2 years, the Methodist Church schismed right down the middle, and now they have the Wesleyan Church and the Methodist Church. And the Methodist Church does gay weddings, but the Wesleyan one doesn't, but they're actually the same liturgy and everything. So, again,
Thank you so much, Pixie. Was somebody trying to speak? Just as Pixie was starting to talk, somebody was trying to speak.
Oh, yeah. Anne Marie, can you hear me?
Absolutely. Go ahead, my brother.
I remember back in the late 70s, one of the elders at my hall gave a talk on sisters wearing pants. And he was saying that women that wore pants were trying to mimic lesbians. Do you remember anything like that back in the 70s when they were really coming down on sisters wearing pants?
I personally
I remember that. And some sisters wore pantsuits, and that's what you're right. I forgot all about that till you mentioned that.
Please continue, brother.
I remember when the elder gave that talk, a lot of the sisters were angry, and I remember in field service, some of the sisters were saying they were so angry about that, and they were saying, "I'm going to wear pants," because he was saying that they shouldn't even wear even pants at home, and they were saying, "No, I'm going to continue wearing pants," and it was like an uproar in the congregation. So I was just wondering, was it just out here in California, or is it in all around, the United States about the pants issue in the late 70s?
I think it's in the South, and it was like that.
Go ahead, Debbie.
He was saying it was it in other areas. And yeah, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, going to the Kingdom Hall, and then we built the Kingdom Hall right across the state line in Mississippi. But yeah, that was a big deal about it. And then brothers used to wear leisure suits. And then they brought out about that was the Kingdom Hall wasn't a place of leisure. It was, not respectful of Jehovah or of the Watchtower Society.
Hey, Anne Marie, we're gonna have to get moving along here. We're going over time here. We got to get to the news.
Thank you, Rick. I was just going to say, well, we need to wrap this up, gentlemen and my sisters. Thank you so much for all who chimed in. Thank you, Pixie, and thank you, the brother, and Eric, and Debbie, and everyone else. Thank you so much. We need to go to JW World News, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks on the next Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower. Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you, Anne Marie, and thank all the people who called in tonight. We really appreciate it. Stay in with us. We're going to JW World News next. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, just stay on there. We'll be up in about 2 minutes with the news. So don't go anywhere. Thank you for coming in. All right.